Something just happened that was never supposed to happen in this war, and almost no one is explaining it clearly yet. A single strike, one moment, may have just exposed a weakness nobody believed existed. And if what we are seeing is real, then this is not just escalation. This is a shift. Because Iran didn't just launch missiles this time, it may have tested a completely new battlefield reality. But here's the part that should make you pause. The most important detail is not what was hit. It's how it was hit, and why it actually got through. Stay with me, because once you see the full picture, the next phase of this war becomes a lot more dangerous. This all began during what is now being called the 65th wave of Operation True Promise 4. Yes, 65 waves, in just around 20 days. That alone should tell you something is not going according to the original plan, because wars that are supposed to end quickly don't reach wave 65. They either stop or they spiral. And right now, this looks like a spiral. In this wave, Iran introduced something new, a ballistic missile system called Nasra, a name most people had never even heard before this moment. And that is exactly what makes it so important. Because weapons that appear suddenly are usually not new, they're just being revealed at the moment they matter most. According to reports, Nasra was launched toward high-value targets. Not symbolic targets, not random targets, strategic targets. And one of those targets stands out more than all the others, the Binyamina refinery in Haifa. Now, at first glance, this might sound like just another industrial strike, but that assumption would be a mistake, because this refinery is not just a refinery. It is one of the central nodes in Israel's energy system. It supports fuel supply, it supports chemical production, it supports manufacturing chains, and indirectly, it supports daily life. So when something like this is targeted, the impact is never isolated. It spreads outward. And that is exactly what makes this moment different. Reports suggest a missile actually made it through defenses. Not intercepted, not deflected. It got through. Fire crews were immediately deployed, smoke was seen rising above the facility, and power disruptions followed in surrounding areas. Now here's where things start to get complicated. Officials describe the damage as limited, controlled, contained, but markets reacted very differently. Stocks tied to the refinery sector dropped sharply. And markets do not react emotionally, they react to risk. So now we have two versions of reality, the official version and the market version, and they don't match, which raises a bigger question. What exactly did the market see that the public didn't? And more importantly, what does that say about what really happened at the site? But this is where the story takes a deeper turn, because the strike itself is only half the mystery. The other half is how it bypassed defense systems. Iran claims Nasra is not a standard ballistic missile. It is based on the K-bar platform, with extended range, heavier payload. But most importantly, advanced terminal guidance. That one detail changes everything, because traditional missile defense systems rely on prediction, they track trajectory, they calculate impact paths, and they intercept accordingly. But what happens when the trajectory changes at the last second? What happens when the missile doesn't follow the predicted arc? That's where things start to break down. Systems like Arrow, David's Sling, Patriot, they are powerful, but they are built on patterns, and patterns only work when behavior is predictable. Nasra may not be predictable. In its final phase, it can reportedly adjust its path. That means the interception window shrinks dramatically, and in some cases, disappears entirely, which could explain what we saw. A missile getting through, a critical site being hit, and a defense system facing a new kind of challenge. But wait, because the story doesn't stop at Israel. The same wave expanded far beyond one country. Iran reportedly launched missiles toward multiple US-linked bases. Not one, not two. 3 major positions, Al Udeid in Qatar, Isa Air Base in Bahrain, and Al Dhafra in the UAE. Now think about that for a second. This was not a single front attack. This was a regional signal, multiple countries, multiple targets, one coordinated wave. And that changes how this conflict is defined, because it is no longer contained, it is expanding. Quietly, but clearly. And here comes the part most people are missing. The narrative before this wave was very different. The assumption was that Iran's capabilities were degrading, that continuous strikes had weakened its systems, that launch capacity was declining. But Wave 65 challenges that idea. Reports suggest at least 6 different missile systems were used, in a single coordinated strike. That is not weakness, that is diversity. That is planning, that is adaptation. Some missiles were liquid-fueled, some were solid-fueled, some were long-range. Some were precision-focused. And that combination makes defense far more difficult. Because now, you're not facing one type of threat. You're facing multiple profiles at once, and that splits defensive focus, which increases the chance that something gets through. And something did get through. But just when it seemed like this wave was already intense enough, Another development surfaced. A U.S. Air Force F-35A reportedly conducted a mission over Iran. And then something unexpected happened. It had to make an emergency landing. At an undisclosed location, U.S. officials said the pilot was safe, but they did not fully explain why the landing happened. And that silence created space for another narrative. Reports began suggesting the aircraft may have been hit. Iran even released footage claiming engagement. Now, whether that claim is fully verified or not, the possibility alone is significant. Because the F-35 represents stealth dominance, but stealth is not invisibility. It reduces radar signature. It does not eliminate heat signature. And if detection methods are evolving, that changes the equation entirely. Imagine a system that tracks heat instead of radar reflection. No warning, no alert, no time to react. That possibility shifts air warfare into a new phase. And suddenly, the battlefield becomes less predictable. But now let's zoom out even further, because what triggered this entire escalation chain matters just as much. Before this wave, Israel struck near the South Pars gas field, one of the largest gas reserves in the world. That was not just a military strike, that was an economic trigger, because South Pars is deeply tied to global energy supply. When operations there are disrupted, the impact is not local, it becomes global, and Iran responded accordingly. It warned that regional energy infrastructure could be targeted, and then it acted. Reports indicated threats and strikes across Gulf-linked assets, Qatar, UAE, Saudi-linked systems, Kuwait-linked concerns. Now, the conflict is no longer just military. It is economic. It is strategic. It is global. Because energy flows are now part of the battlefield. And that brings us to the most critical layer, markets. Shipping, insurance, trade routes, everything begins to react. The Strait of Hormuz becomes a question mark. LNG supply becomes uncertain. Oil price volatility increases. And suddenly, this is not just a war story, it is a global economic risk story. And then came the contradiction. The US said it was unaware of the initial South Pars strike, but Israeli sources suggested coordination. Both statements cannot fully align, which introduces uncertainty at the highest level. And uncertainty at that level is dangerous, because it means control may not be as tight as it appears. Netanyahu later signaled a pause on South Pars strikes, but also made it clear the war continues. No defined endpoint, no clear limit. And that is where prolonged conflict begins. Civilian impact is already visible. Flights disrupted, airspace restricted, travel halted, people stranded, and even intercepted missiles leave consequences. Debris falls, fires start, systems get stressed. This is not collapse. This is gradual pressure, and gradual pressure can be more dangerous than sudden shock, because it builds quietly until something breaks. On the Iranian side, sustainability remains a question. Can this pace continue? Can resources hold? That answer is still unclear. And that uncertainty keeps the tension alive. Expectations have already been broken. Fast war became prolonged conflict. Air dominance became contested space. Containment became expansion. And now, the next wave becomes the real question. Because if wave 65 looked like this, what does wave 70 look like? What does wave 80 look like? And how far does this go before something bigger happens? This is no longer just about missiles. It is about systems under pressure. It is about economies reacting. It is about global consequences forming in real time. And we may still be at the early stage. So now I want to ask you something. Do you think this war is close to slowing down? Or are we just seeing the beginning of something much larger? Drop your opinion in the comments. I read them all. And your perspective matters here. If you found this breakdown valuable, hit like, share this with someone who needs to understand what's really happening, and subscribe to Market Mindset for more deep analysis like this. Because the next update might be even bigger than this one.